In the endless darkness of space, stars drifted silently past the viewport of the small medical transport. Amelia Kane sat in the corner of the cabin, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, eyes following the streaks of starlight as the ship accelerated. Through the void. Beside her, her daughter Lira lay on a narrow med-sleeve bed, sedated but restless, the faint rise and fall of her chest betraying the fragility of her condition. The rare neurogenetic disorder that had plagued Lira since birth had only worsened over the last few months, and the clock was ticking faster than they dared to acknowledge. Amelia's gaze shifted from the stars to the small monitor tracking Lira's vital signs. Each heartbeat a reminder of why they were here, why they had left everything behind on Nebula Colony. The medical supplies they carried, especially the precious neuraxium, represented not just a chance at survival, but hope itself. Eric Donovan stepped into the cabin, his presence commanding yet gentle. Years in special forces had honed him into a man of calculated action, but the tenderness he reserved for Lira and Amelia softened his rugged exterior. "How's she doing?" he asked, his voice low but steady, carrying the weight of someone who had seen countless battles and yet found this one infinitely more personal. Amelia looked up at him, a mixture of exhaustion and relief in her eyes. "Her vitals are stable, for now, but the medication isn't enough if we don't get her to Earth soon." Her voice trailed off, fear tangled with hope. Eric crouched beside Lira's bed, gently brushing a strand of silver hair from her forehead. The girl's eyes fluttered open, large and luminescent, a faint curiosity in her gaze despite the sedation. "Are we playing a game?" she asked softly. "Something like that," Eric replied, forcing a small smile. "This time, though, it's a game of patience and staying hidden. Can you do that for me?" Lira nodded solemnly. "Like hide and seek?" "Exactly like hide and seek," Eric confirmed, pressing a reassuring kiss to her temple. "You're going to be the best at it." Amelia reached over and took Eric's hand, intertwining their fingers. "I don't know how you stay so calm," she whispered, the hum of the ship and the faint vibration from its engines filling the brief silence. "Experience," Eric said quietly, "and a lot of reasons to keep moving forward." His eyes met hers, a promise unspoken but understood. "We'll get her through this." The ship shuddered as it adjusted its trajectory, dodging a small debris field near the outer edge of the Nebulan sector. Artificial gravity hummed as it struggled to compensate for the sudden maneuvers. Eric's mind raced through contingencies. Tauran Syndicate operatives could be anywhere along their path, and with the neuraxium shipment on board, they were a high-value target. Moments later, Mac, the ship's pragmatic first officer, appeared in the cabin doorway. "We're clear for now," he said, his tone a mix of relief and warning. "But you need to know part of that medical cargo. It's neuraxium." Eric's eyes widened. "The treatment? It's exactly what Lira needs." "Yes," Mac confirmed. "It's rare. Only a handful of facilities in the galaxy can synthesize it. It's worth a fortune on the black market, which is why we're not exactly invisible." Amelia's hand went to her chest. "You're telling us this. Why?" Mac's expression softened as he glanced at the sleeping girl. "Because I'm not completely heartless. The shipment was originally destined for a private clinic on Earth. They may be willing to help your daughter." Hope flared in Eric's chest, but caution tempered it. "What's the catch?" "The Tauran Syndicate was supposed to intercept this shipment. They won't be happy that we slipped past them," Mac said, "and they have operatives everywhere including Earth." Eric's jaw tightened. "So, we're caught in the middle of a smuggling operation." Mac shrugged. "Look at it this way. You needed to get to Earth with a sick child. We needed extra security for a high-value shipment. You help each other." After Mac left, Eric and Amelia sat in silence, processing the complication. Amelia finally broke the quiet. "Do you trust him?" Eric shook his head slightly. "Not entirely. But he's pragmatic. He sees the advantage in having us along. Probably figures my military background could be useful if things go south." Amelia reached out, resting her hand on his. "You keep surprising me, Eric Donovan. the quiet maintenance man with a mysterious past. Not mysterious, he said with a wry smile. Just complicated. That night, in the small confines of their cabin, Eric and Amelia found solace in each other. Lira slept soundly under mild sedation, unaware of the danger and the hope riding on their journey. Eric traced gentle patterns along Amelia's luminescent skin, a calming ritual. They had begun on Nebula Colony and whispered, "We're going to get her through this." Amelia leaned into him, her response quiet but intense. Together, she agreed, their shared purpose transcending physical attraction. The bond they were forming now was forged in the fires of desperation, love, and mutual protection. 2 weeks into the journey, the ship's comm was shattered by alarms. Red lights flashed, and the hull vibrated with the approach of an unidentified vessel. Eric bolted upright, already calculating the threat. "Stay with Lira," he instructed Amelia. Grabbing his pulse rifle, the bridge was a frenzy. "Captain." Raina stood rigid, her face set against the flashing panels. "Tampa suit vessel," she announced. "They're demanding we surrender the cargo." Mac cursed under his breath. "How did they find us? We've been running dark for days." "Doesn't matter now," the captain said grimly. "They outgun us 3-1. We've got maybe 20 minutes before boarding range." Eric's mind raced. The Tauran ship was a Ravager-class interceptor, fast, armed and designed for boarding operations. Their cargo vessel was sturdy but lightly defended. "Can we outrun them?" he asked, already knowing the answer. The captain shook her head. "Not a chance. We'll need strategy, not speed." Eric quickly assessed their options. 7 crew members, all minimally trained for combat, versus 15 to 20 military-grade Tauran soldiers. Bad odds, but not impossible. He requested schematics, weapon inventories, and drone access. A plan began forming in his mind. "We'll use the maintenance drones as decoys," he said. "Emit heat signatures like human life forms while we vent the cargo bay, move the neuraxium first, replace it with decoy containers. When they board, chaos will work in our favor." The crew worked swiftly, Eric's precision guiding every movement. Amelia and Lira were moved to the most shielded maintenance closet near the engine room. "Stay hidden," Eric whispered. "This is your game, kiddo. Be quiet, be clever." As the Tauran boarding party made contact, Eric's ambush unfolded. Drones whirred and emitted false heat signatures. The cargo bay depressurized, throwing the invaders into disarray. Pulse rifles fired with surgical precision. Crew members moved like a single unit under Eric's command. Within minutes, the majority of the Tauran soldiers were incapacitated, either by the depressurization or tactical suppression. Eric returned to Amelia and Lira. Relief washing over him. "It's over," he assured them. "They're contained." Amelia held him tightly, her body pressed against his in quiet gratitude. Lira's eyes shone with weak but unbroken hope. "Did we win the game?" she asked. "We did," Eric whispered, brushing her hair back. "And now we get you to Earth." The ship set a direct course, no longer constrained by stealth. For the first time since leaving Nebula Colony, the family felt a fragile hope bloom, a chance at healing, at life, and at a future where love, humanity, and courage could overcome even the darkest of threats. The medical transport surged through the dark expanse, engines thrumming as though aware of the urgency gripping everyone on board. Eric Donovan sat in the cockpit, hands steady on the controls, eyes scanning every sensor readout with the precision of a soldier trained in countless battlefields. Beside him, Captain Raina barked orders, directing crew members to fortify bulkheads and adjust shields. Every second counted. Every decision could mean the difference between life and death for Lira. In the maintenance closet, Amelia held Lira close, whispering gentle reassurances. "You're doing so well, sweetie. Almost there." Lira's silver eyes, wide with both fear and trust, tracked her mother's every move. The child's tiny hand brushed against the luminescent patterns along Amelia's armor ritual. They had formed during the long days of travel, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, warmth and love could be found. Back on the bridge, Eric's mind calculated the positions of the Tauran ships. They were relentless, following every jump, every evasive maneuver. They've coordinated their pursuit patterns. He muttered under his breath, standard military tactics but predictable. We can exploit that. Exploit it how? Mac asked. Leaning over the tactical console, Eric pointed to a cluster of debris fields ahead. They're expecting a straight chase. We use the fields, shields down momentarily, but their sensors will be scrambled. It'll give us a few minutes to gain distance and maybe lose a couple of them if they're not careful. Raina's eyebrow rose, impressed despite herself. You're suggesting we risk hull integrity to outsmart them? Yes, Eric replied calmly. We're not equipped for a frontal fight. This is the only way to survive. Max smirked. Typical Donovan, always calculating the risk and turning it into an advantage. Eric allowed himself a brief smile. Before refocusing, prepare the drones for a secondary maneuver. He ordered, if they're close enough to intercept, we'll use them to create decoy vectors, force them into crossfire zones. Meanwhile, Amelia's mind raced with worry, but also hope. She had watched Eric in the last skirmish, seen his tactical genius in action, and for the first time felt a strange sense of security among the chaos. He's amazing, she whispered to Lira, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. And he's here for us. Lira, weak but determined, nodded. I know, she said, her small hand pressing against Eric's med sleeve from across the cabin. He's my hero. The next jump brought them dangerously close to the outer edge of a dense asteroid belt. Sensors pinged furiously as rocks, the size of small moons, drifted lazily in orbit. Here's our chance, Eric said. Initiate evasive protocols. Captain Rayner's crew moved with mechanical precision, adjusting thrusters, recalculating shields, and monitoring structural integrity. The transport shuddered violently as it dipped between massive rocks, the hull groaning under stress. Outside the viewport, stars streaked past in blinding light, and for a moment, it was as though the entire universe was pressing against them. Mac grinned despite the tension. Looks like a roller coaster from hell. Eric's eyes never left. The readouts, focus on our position. Keep Lira safe. That's priority one. Within the asteroid field, the Tauran ships faltered. The debris caused sensor glitches, and their pursuit tactics became erratic. Eric seized the opportunity. Drones now. He commanded. The maintenance units shot out from concealed ports, emitting false heat signatures and creating multiple phantom targets. Tauran weapons locked onto the decoys, firing bursts of plasma into empty space. Nice work, Max said, his grin widening. They're hitting ghosts. Eric allowed himself a moment of satisfaction but didn't relax. Keep pushing. Shields up, but ready for impact. Their interceptors will adapt quickly. In the cloistered safety of the maintenance closet, Amelia held Lira tightly. Can you feel it? She whispered. We're moving faster. We're safe, I think. Lira's small hands clutched her mother's arm, trusting implicitly. I can feel it, she said, her voice faint but clear. Eric's making sure we're okay. Outside, chaos reigned as the Tauran fleet struggled to maintain formation. Plasma bolts ricocheted off asteroids, one narrowly missing the transport. Eric's hand shot out, adjusting the thrusters with surgical precision. Almost. There. Just a little further, he muttered after several tense minutes. The transport emerged from the asteroid belt, sensors confirming the majority of the Tauran ships were damaged or lagging behind. Eric allowed himself a controlled breath. We bought ourselves some distance. But this isn't over. Mac leaned over the console. How far until Earth jump? 3 standard hyperspace jumps, Eric replied. We're not out of the woods yet, and the Syndicate's tracking tech is sophisticated. They'll catch up if we're careless. Amelia finally allowed herself a moment to relax, brushing Lira's hair back. You did it. You saved us. Eric stepped into the cabin, kneeling beside the two. We're not safe yet, but we're closer. Every decision matters now. Stick together, trust each other, and we'll make it. Lira's eyes sparkled, filled with a childlike mixture of awe and gratitude. You're my hero. Mr. Eric, she whispered. Eric smiled. feeling a strange warmth even amid the tension. "And you're my reason," he said softly. Over the next few hours, the crew coordinated repairs, fortified shields, and recalibrated sensors. Each jump brought them closer to Earth, closer to the medical facility that might save Lira. Yet the threat of the Tauran Syndicate loomed, a constant reminder that victory was never guaranteed. During a quiet moment on the observation deck, Amelia and Eric watched Lira through the med sleeve, her chest rising and falling with steady rhythm. "Do you ever wonder," Amelia began, "how she ended up like this? A human child on a Nebulan colony, facing something no one should?" Eric's gaze remained fixed on the stars. "I wonder every day, but I also know this: we're not defined by where we come from. We're defined by what we do, the choices we make, and the people we protect." Amelia's hand found his. "You're amazing," she whispered. "I don't know how you do it." Eric shook his head with a small smile. "It's not just me. It's all of us. You, Lira, the crew. Humanity isn't just about strength, it's about courage, compassion, and a willingness to risk everything for someone else." As the stars streaked past once more, the transport leapt into hyperspace. For the first time in weeks, Amelia allowed herself a flicker of hope. Lira's tiny hand pressed against hers, and in that moment, the vast darkness of space seemed just a little less lonely. And in the silence of hyperspace, Eric made a quiet promise to keep Lira safe, to guide them both to Earth, and to prove that humanity, even in the furthest reaches of the galaxy, could shine brighter than any star. The deep hum of the transport's engines vibrated through the cabin, a constant reminder that every second brought them closer to Earth, and closer to the inevitable confrontation with the Tauran Syndicate. Eric Donovan's hands moved with practiced precision across the controls, adjusting shields, monitoring propulsion, and running sensor diagnostics. Every flicker on the display, every minor anomaly, demanded his full attention. Captain Rayner stood at the tactical console, issuing orders to the crew. "Reinforce the aft hull. Reroute auxiliary power to shields. I want all external cameras online and feeding to the bridge. We can't afford surprises." Eric nodded, agreed. "And we need to prepare for boarding. They're persistent. Even if we reach Earth, the Syndicate won't let us deliver the Neuraxiom without a fight." Mac leaned over the console, a wry grin on his face. "Looks like we're about to turn this transport into a fortress." Eric allowed himself a brief smile before turning serious. "Exactly. But it's not about fortifying, it's about strategy. We don't outgun them, we outthink them. That's how humanity survives in the stars." In the small cabin where Amelia kept watch over Lira, the child stirred in her med sleeve. Her silver eyes opened slowly, scanning the dimly lit space. "Mom," she whispered, "are we going to be okay?" Amelia's hand brushed Lira's hair back gently. "We will. Eric's with us. He's amazing, and he's going to keep us safe." Lira's small hand pressed against her mother's arm, a gesture of trust and hope. "I believe him," she said softly, her voice barely audible. Eric's thoughts drifted for a moment, the weight of responsibility pressing down. Lira wasn't just a child. She was a symbol of everything. They were fighting for the innocence, the courage, the potential of humanity extended into the stars. "She's the reason we fight," he muttered under his breath, "and I won't let anything happen to her." The transport shuddered as the first warning alarms triggered. Tauran ships had been detected on an intercept course, closing fast. "They found us," Rayner said grimly. "Brace for combat." Eric sprang into action. Crew to stations, drones ready for deployment, shields to maximum. "We're not running, we're setting a trap." The first wave of Tauran interceptors appeared on the tactical display, sleek, armed, and relentless. "Count them," Eric ordered. 15, possibly more hidden vectors. Standard boarding protocols. They're aiming for the cargo hold. Mac's eyes narrowed. "And that's where our decoys are waiting." Eric nodded. "Exactly. But it's more than decoys. The moment they engage, we'll use the drones to create phantom signatures, confuse their targeting systems, and force them into a kill zone near the aft hull. Timing is everything." On the observation deck, Amelia held Lira close, watching the sensors feed in real time. Eric's plan, it's risky, she whispered. But if anyone can do it, it's him. The first Tauran boarding craft dropped. Out of hyperspace, magnetic clouds locking onto the transport's hull with a hiss. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos. They're trying to breach the cargo bay, Raina shouted. Eric's hands flew across the tactical controls. Deploy. Drones now. He commanded. The maintenance drones shot into the corridor, heat signatures pulsating like human life forms, moving erratically. Tauran weapons locked onto the phantoms, firing bursts that illuminated the corridor with searing plasma. Fall back to inner airlocks. Eric ordered. Wait for my signal. The Tauran soldiers advanced, tall, imposing figures clad in dark combat armor. Their plasma rifles burned arcs of light across the cargo bay, but the decoys drew most of their fire. Eric and Mac, along with a few crew members, moved through concealed passages, positioning themselves for ambush. Inside the maintenance closet, Amelia held Lira tighter. "Mom, is he going to be okay?" the child whispered. "He will." Amelia assured her. "He's always been amazing, and he's doing this for you." Outside, the battle escalated. Tauran forces moved cautiously, expecting minimal resistance. When Eric and his team emerged from hidden positions, pulse rifles opened fire, precision cutting through the enemy's ranks. 3 Tauran soldiers dropped immediately, their surprise giving Eric's team a tactical advantage. "Now, seal the inner airlock," Eric shouted. The crew reacted instantly, trapping the remaining Tauran forces in the depressurizing cargo. Alarms blared as the atmosphere thinned, disorienting the enemy and making their advanced training less effective. On the observation deck, Amelia and Lira felt the subtle vibration of depressurization. "What's happening?" Lira asked. Frightened. "Trust him," Amelia said firmly. "He knows what he's doing." The Tauran soldiers' communications scrambled, their sensors confused by the drones and depressurization. Eric directed his team with precision, laying down covering fire as they retreated towards safer positions. Every move was calculated, every action intentional. By the time the final boarding parties were contained, the transport had sustained minor damage, but the crew's strategy had neutralized the threat. Eric took a deep breath, checking the tactical displays, all clear. The rest are either unconscious or contained. Amelia released Lira from her hold, relief washing over both of them. He did it. "We're safe." Eric stepped into the cabin, kneeling beside them. "We're not completely out of danger, but this was a critical step. You both stay close, stay hidden, and trust the crew. We'll get to Earth safely." Lira's eyes, filled with wonder and trust, met Eric's. "You're my hero," she whispered again. Eric smiled, feeling an overwhelming surge of protectiveness and affection. "And you're my reason," he replied softly. The transport continued its journey, engines humming steadily as hyperspace streaks of light danced past the viewport. Earth's blue sphere loomed ahead, a symbol of hope and healing and the promise of a future where Lira could finally receive the treatment she needed. In the quiet after the chaos, Amelia and Eric shared a moment of connection. "You were incredible," she said softly. "Terrifying, but incredible." Eric shook his head, a modest smile tugging at his lips. "I'm just doing what needs to be done. Humanity, courage, survival. That's all any of us can give in the end." Lira stirred in her med sleeve, tiny fingers curling around her mother's hand. "I can feel it," she said. "We're going to make it." "Yes," Eric said, voice firm with certainty. "We will. And when we do, we'll make sure everyone knows that humanity, even in the farthest reaches of space, stands for hope, courage, and the will to protect the innocent." As Earth's light grew larger on the viewport, a silent vow formed in Eric's mind. No matter what obstacles lay ahead, no matter the enemies that awaited, he would ensure Lira's safety, Amelia's protection, and the triumph of human ingenuity and courage. And in that moment, in the endless expanse of space, he understood something essential. Humanity wasn't defined by species, star systems, or weapons. It was defined by the choices made to protect, to fight, and to love against impossible odds. The cold corridors of Vega Station echoed with the hum of power conduits and the faint hiss of air filtration. Jonathan Hayes led his team through the labyrinthine interior, pulse rifles at the ready. Every step they took carried the weight of survival, not just their own, but the lives of the research teams and countless civilians depending on the outpost's vital experiments. Sensors are picking up Tauran patrols on multiple decks. Mara Quinn whispered, crouching behind her. Maintenance panel. If we're not careful, we'll be flanked before we reach the central lab. Jonathan nodded. Then we don't just move, we control the battlefield. Humans survive by adapting, by thinking to moves ahead. Remember that. The team split into pairs, using the station's ventilation ducts and maintenance tunnels to bypass heavy patrols. Lira moved swiftly alongside Jonathan, her medical pack bouncing against her side. The researchers are close, she said. They're reporting. Elevated stress levels fear could compromise their work. Jonathan kept his gaze forward. Fear is part of being human, Lira. But what makes us different is that we act anyway. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's persistence despite it. They reached the first major choke point, a reinforced bulkhead patrolled by 4 Tauran soldiers. Jonathan motioned to Mara, who activated a holographic decoy in the adjacent corridor, drawing the enemy's attention. The soldiers turned, weapons scanning the full signatures. Jonathan and Mara moved in synchrony, silent but deadly. In less than 15 seconds, the patrol was neutralized, unconscious but alive. Efficiency is humanity's secret weapon. Jonathan muttered as they continued forward. We don't just fight, we improvise, we protect, we adapt. The next challenge was the station's hydroponics sector. Floodlights bathed the greenhouses in harsh glare, revealing the presence of 2 more Tauran squads. Jonathan crouched behind a support beam. We can't take them head-on. We'll use the environment. He scanned the hydroponics tanks and saw the delicate irrigation system. Pressurized pipes snaking overhead. Mara, a well-placed shot can trigger a cascade. He instructed. She fired at the main valve, releasing a torrent of nutrient-rich liquid onto the floor. The Tauran soldiers slipped and slid, their movements clumsy. Lira and Jonathan moved in, taking them down with non-lethal strikes. Humans see opportunity where others see obstacles, Jonathan said quietly, pulling Mara and Lira back into the shadows. Finally, they reached the central lab, the heart of Vega Station. Scientists and technicians were huddled around containment units, their faces pale with anxiety. Leah Kestrel stepped forward, relief flooding her features. You've come for us. Jonathan gestured for calm. We're here to get you out safely. Follow my lead and stay close. But the Tauran weren't idle. Sensors picked up a squadron of reinforcements closing in through the main airlock. Mara frowned. We can't hold them off for long. We need another plan. Jonathan's eyes scanned the lab. Several portable cryochambers were nearby, capable of rapid depressurization and ejecting objects into space. A spark of human ingenuity lit his mind. We use the lab itself as a trap. Set the cryochambers to depressurize on a timer. It'll create chaos and cover our retreat. Lira's eyes widened. It's risky. Could damage the research. Jonathan shook his head. We preserve the research by protecting the people. Humanity prioritizes life above all else. We adapt to protect the vulnerable, not just ourselves. They set the timers and positioned themselves strategically. When the Tauran squad entered, the chambers hissed and vented, alarms blaring. The soldiers were thrown into disarray, scrambling for footing as Jonathan and his team neutralized them efficiently. Once the immediate threat was contained, Jonathan led the scientists and Leah toward the maintenance tunnels, bypassing the main corridors entirely. Mara and Lira formed a protective perimeter around the group, every step calculated to maximize safety. As they emerged onto the observation deck, the station's exterior loomed above them, a labyrinth of docking bays and power conduits. Jonathan scanned the skies. Tauran ships were attempting orbital insertion. Extraction would not be easy. Starward Sentinel, we need immediate support. He called into his comm. Coordinates Delta 1. Priority extraction. High urgency. The freighter appeared moments later, weaving between orbital fire. Jonathan and Mara guided the evac team across exposed catwalks, improvising handholds and using microgravity to their advantage. Tauran snipers took aim, but Jonathan's team moved too quickly, adapting to every threat. Lira clutched the data core tightly, eyes wide. Will we make it? Jonathan met her gaze. We always do, not because we're stronger or faster, but because humans never give up. We fight for what matters and we never stop adapting. As the last of the research teams boarded the freighter, Tauran fire struck a nearby module. Sparks rained across the deck. Jonathan dove, shielding Lira with his body. Mara and Lira followed, ensuring no one was left behind. Once aboard, the freighter's engines roared, launching them out of the station's orbit. Jonathan exhaled, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. This is what humanity does, he said, looking at his team. We survive, we adapt, and we protect. That's how we thrive in the universe. Lira looked up at him, awe in her eyes. Humans really are incredible. Jonathan smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. Not incredible, just relentless. We fight not for glory, but for the chance to see others live, to protect knowledge, to endure. That's who we are. That's what makes us human. The Starward Sentinel jumped to hyperspace, leaving Vega Station behind in a trail of starlight. Jonathan Hayes looked at the stars streaking past, thinking of the countless battles humans had faced, and the countless they would continue to face. Because survival wasn't enough, humanity endured. Humanity adapted. Humanity triumphed. And against the Tauran, against impossible odds, humanity had just proven that again. The freighter Starward Sentinel cut through the blackness of hyperspace, leaving Vega Station behind in the wake of chaos and fire. Jonathan Hayes stood at the observation deck, Mara and Lira at his sides, and the rescued scientists clustered. Nearby, Lira Kestrel clutched a data core to her chest, a symbol of hope amidst the lingering fear. Humanity had endured this far, but the final confrontation with the Tauran Syndicate still loomed. Jonathan's comm crackled. All ships maintain formation. Tauran reinforcements detected at Vector 90. Estimated arrival, 30 minutes. His jaw tightened. 30 minutes wasn't long. The Tauran weren't just after their cargo, they wanted vengeance, control, and fear. We can't outrun them, Morrow whispered. Even at max velocity, they'll intercept us before Earth. Orbit. Jonathan shook his head. Then we don't outrun them. We outthink them. That's the difference. Humans survive by adapting, by turning the impossible into possible. Lira stepped forward, her medical pack bouncing against her hip. We can't just fight, they'll slaughter the civilians if we fail. We need a plan that guarantees their safety. Jonathan's eyes scanned the freighter's schematics, blinking lights and maintenance panels. Every inch of the vessel's design was familiar to him. He took a deep breath. We create a trap. They want the Neuraxium. They'll pursue it blindly. We bait them, channel them, and force them into a choke point. Then we hit with everything. We have, Mara frowned. We only have standard pulse rifles, a few grenades, and improvised explosives. Their fleet is heavily armed. Jonathan's lips curved into a determined grin, and that's why it'll work. Humans aren't just strong, we're clever. We use what we have, exploit every weakness. That's how we survive. That's how we win. The freighter's crew mobilized, repositioning canisters of decoy cargo throughout the ship. Jonathan and Mara placed sensors and holographic decoys, creating the illusion of movement and life. Lira set up temporary medical bays in concealed compartments. Preparing for the inevitable injuries, Lira approached, anxiety in her eyes. Ah, you sure this will work? Jonathan rested a hand on her shoulder. We don't rely on luck. We rely on human ingenuity, teamwork, and persistence. That's what makes us unstoppable. As predicted, the Tauran arrived. Their flagship, a sleek Ravager-class vessel bristling with weapons, approached at high velocity. Smaller attack ships flanked it, scanning the freighter for signs of life. Jonathan's team held their positions, hearts pounding, minds razor-sharp. The first wave struck. Tauran plasma cannons raked across the freighter's hull, sparks and metal debris flying. Mara and Lira ducked, returning fire with precise, calculated bursts. The crew navigated the starward sentinel through an orbital debris field, using the chaos as cover. Jonathan's pulse rifle discharged with deadly accuracy, neutralizing boarding teams before they could breach the airlock. "This is exactly what we trained for," he muttered, diving behind a support beam as a plasma round struck near his feet. Adaptation is the key. Humans aren't predictable, we're resourceful. In the cargo bay, decoy containers emitted false heat signatures. The Tauran soldiers fell for the trap, rushing toward empty crates while Jonathan's team struck from hidden positions. Within moments, confusion spread among the attackers. Explosives rigged to depressurize compartments added to the chaos, sending unprepared Taurans scrambling for airlocks. Jonathan signaled the team forward. "Move, protect the civilians and secure the Neuraxium." The corridor erupted into close-quarters combat. Pulse rifles flared, plasma blades clashed, and humans fought with a primal intensity born of desperation and hope. Mera's agility and Lira's precision made them a lethal combination. Jonathan moved like a shadow, striking with efficiency, guiding the crew with tactical commands honed from years of experience. "You've underestimated humanity," he growled, disarming a Tauran with a sweep of his rifle. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for life, for freedom, for those who cannot defend themselves." Meanwhile, the freighter's navigation system guided the vessel into a narrow asteroid corridor, using natural cover to evade orbital strikes. From Tauran ships, the attackers pressed, desperate to reclaim their prize. But Jonathan's foresight had anticipated every maneuver. "Now," Jonathan shouted, pressing a sequence on the freighter's control panel. Sections of the ship's hull opened briefly, ejecting decoy pods into space. Each pod emitted strong heat and motion signatures, drawing Tauran fire and luring them into collision paths with the asteroids. The corridor became a deadly maze. Tauran ships collided with debris, weapons systems overloaded from misfires, and human ingenuity turned the tide. From the observation deck, Lira Kestrel watched with awe. They're winning." Jonathan smiled grimly. "Humans always find a way, not because we're the strongest, but because we never stop trying." Minutes stretched into an eternity. The freighter's crew, exhausted but relentless, pushed through the remaining Tauran resistance. Jonathan led the final boarding defense, personally engaging the last wave of Tauran soldiers attempting to breach the medical bays. Pulse rifles discharged, grenades detonated with calculated precision, and the team fought with synchronized brilliance. Finally, silence. The freighter floated amidst the wreckage of the Tauran fleet. Jonathan surveyed the aftermath. Decoy pods, drifting in space, damaged but intact freighter and his crew alive though battered. He turned to Lira and the scientists. "Everyone's safe," Lira nodded, tears streaming. You saved us. Humanity saved us." Jonathan crouched to meet her gaze. "Not me alone. Humans act together. We adapt, we endure, we protect. That's the difference. That's why humanity thrives." Lira and Mara joined him, bruised but triumphant. Mara clapped him on the shoulder. "You really are something else, Hayes. Terrifying in a firefight, but magnificent in strategy." Jonathan allowed himself a small smile. "Magnificent, yes, but only because we fight for more than ourselves. That's the essence of being human. We endure, we innovate, and we never abandon hope." Back in the medical bay, injured crew members and civilians were treated. Jonathan oversaw the triage, ensuring that no one was left unattended. The Neuraxium supplies were secure, and the scientists resumed work on stabilizing and distributing the regenerative therapy. Humanity's ingenuity had turned near disaster into triumph. As the freighter approached Earth, blue and green below them, Jonathan felt a surge of pride and relief. "We made it," he whispered, his voice catching. We survived and we brought hope with us. Double quotes Mora, standing beside him, added, and humanity proved its worth again. Not through sheer force, but through ingenuity, courage, and unity. Jonathan gazed at the swirling clouds of Earth's atmosphere. Every world we touch, every life we protect, that's what makes us human. That's the legacy we leave. Lira approached, clutching the data core. Will this change things? Will they understand what humans can do? Jonathan took her hand. They'll see. They'll see what happens when humans refuse to back down, when we fight for others, when we never give up. That's the message we carry across the stars. In the days that followed, the Starwood Sentinel docked at Earth's orbital station. Diplomatic and military teams swarmed the freighter, but thanks to Jonathan's careful planning and the unassailable proof of heroism, recognition came instead of reprimand. The rescued scientists were honored, and humanity's standing among interstellar allies was cemented. Jonathan Hayes watched from the observation deck as the first teams of humans and aliens disembarked. Among them, Lira, Mora, and Lara walked, confidently, symbols of endurance, courage, and unity. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see his commanding officer, Admiral Castor. You did well, Hayes. Humanity has reason to be proud. Jonathan nodded, eyes on the horizon. We did more than survive, Admiral. We showed what it means to be human, to protect, to endure, to fight for life and hope. That's the legacy we carry. As Earth's blue oceans and green continents expanded beneath them, Jonathan reflected on the journey, the battles, the risks, the sacrifices all had led to this moment. Humanity had not only survived but had risen adaptable and relentless, a force of hope in a galaxy often indifferent to life. The freighter's crew celebrated quietly, but Jonathan knew the work wasn't over. The Tauran Syndicate would regroup. Threats would arise and challenges would continue to test humanity's limits. But no matter what came next, he was certain of one thing. Humanity would endure, would adapt, and would prevail. Because humans fight not for glory, not for power, but for life, for hope, for each other. And that was why humanity would always thrive.